How's it going, everybody? This is Rob of Novakast back with another reading of Onision's book. This is chapter 17, so 2 more chapters after this. Okay, we're almost done. Alright, let's get started with this crap. Okay, chapter 17. She was dead. I stared at her as the life left her eyes. I didn't see a red glow. I saw a diverse explosion of light before me. Her essence, her energy leaving her body. Julia had been shot through the neck, bled out, and all I did was stare. The man who shot her, he was wearing a funny costume. He must have thought very highly of himself. I should have known he was behind this. I should have known he was peering through the skylight above us. Before aiming his weapon to do what he no doubt thought would kill me, I knew why he was here. I could read everything about the situation I found myself in the smallest detail. He was hired by a person who was hired by another person who was sent to employ an assassin such as him. The fuck? Those creatures that took me on their ship, the ones that tested on me, tried to defeat my black stone. They really thought that if they sent someone after me who wasn't like them, I wouldn't retaliate. Time for punishment. The assassin was pinned against the wall, blood leaking from his ears to match his polka dot suit, red and black, ridiculous, which is the first detail we actually see or hear of this individual. Julia's soul moved in the slowest of motion, almost as if she was sticking around to look into her own eyes to see her own dead body, just like you hear in all those stories. We love looking at ourselves as we leave, almost like one final goodbye. There were creatures all over Earth, just like the ones who took me, only these ones hid in human skin. It was time for them, or there to be none. My body collapsed as I ejected out of it. Time froze again. I imagined a beam of energy coming out the back of my neck, my spine, my tailbone, and feet. I forward thrust through the wall, shooting across hallways, through wooded areas, across the ocean. I traveled to every green light I could see and feel for 1,000 miles. The green light I programmed or otherwise designated in my mind as, or to signify the visitors. All I would have to do is get close enough to see their face for them to die. I could have simply imagined them perish from across the planet, but I wanted to see. I wanted to be close. I wanted to experience their death with my own presence. There were creatures in the bodies of children. Their adopted mothers screamed at the loss of them. Some of them had fathers who cried. Some of them had no fathers at all. Other creatures were businessmen. In fact, most of them were. I pulled some of them out of buildings. I drowned some in their own bathtubs. The rest I simply separate head from body. If it occurred in real time, their deaths took me 17 hours and 47 minutes to accomplish. However, this was in the other realm of existence. Thus, I was back before the assassin could let out his second scream of pain, before my intentional tightening of pressure around his entire body. I wanted my body upright by the time I got back, and there I was, standing lifeless next to Julia in our blood-soaked bed, waiting for my soul to return. As I phased through the wall, I walked into my body and lurched towards the man on the wall, holding his throat, feeling his pulse blink down my arm. I spoke to him. I want you to see how pointless what you have done is. Wouldn't it be something like, I want you to see what you've done is pointless, or how pointless this was, or your attempts were? How about that? How pointless your attempts were. That's probably better. He looked at me with a smile in his eyes, showing his teeth and a half grin on his face. As blood seeped out of his mouth, he gurgled, "I don't fear you," I replied, "Julia." The man looked at me, trying to hold back his confusion, masking it with false confidence. Julia sat up in bed. The light her soul filled the room with was gone. Without much thought, I had returned her to this world and had given her all the information she needed to know. Julia blinked a few seconds, not a few seconds. I'm looking at something else as I'm trying to read this. Julia blinked a few times and looked at me, holding the man against the wall. With blurry eyes, "You're naked," she said. I replied, "And it's not just your blood that I'm drenched in, darling." "What is this?" the assassin screamed. I replied, I just wanted you to see that you accomplished nothing, and your employers are dead." A look of desperation crossed his eyes as the walls melted behind him. I didn't want to kill him, to be brutally honest. I only want to kill what I fear. The creatures from another world. They had the means to kill me. I know I would have to commit further genocide against them to truly protect myself, but all humans, there was nothing for them to do but kneel. As the man passed through the walls, soaring hundreds of miles from me at thousands of miles per hour, I made sure he stayed alive, and that he landed in a swamp near nothing familiar to him. I spared this man, but left him broken. If he lived at this point, that would be up to him. As the walls reformed, the blood evaporated into nothing. As the floor cleaned itself, the furniture we broke reassembled. As the bullet hole in the glass above us closed, as the sheets on the bed made themselves, Julia spoke to me. "What can you not do?" I replied quickly. "Lose you," she laughed. "Smooth, Daniel." Sorry. Felt like gagging. Continued. "There's no need for us to talk anymore. Walk with me." I lifted my hand, and Julia walked forward to press her forehead against it. With Julia's breathing softly as my skin warmed hers, I formed a new stone. It grew in the center of her mind and glowed of another color, blue. Tears poured from Julia's eyes as she whimpered, "What is this?" I replied in her mind simply. She looked up at me as I dropped my hand and listened to the words I spoke within the walls behind her eyes. "Now I cannot lose you ever." As Julia realized I had made her invulnerable to harm, she smiled in a manner that seemed scared, sad, and hopefully all at once, I grabbed Julia's hand, gazed deeply into her, and guided her back to the bed to finish what we had started. Sorry. Still feel like gagging. Alright. Next morning, we disappeared together, spending most of our days in the woods, talking to each other in silence about everything we could. The majority of our conversation revolved around our love for each other. I, above all, realized love was a product of biology, designed to encourage us to reproduce. But it was something I treasured and chose not to remove from either of us. Julia would have our child one day, she insisted to me, and I felt her desire, but another desire existed. There were people around the world just like her, people if I had met instead of her, I could have cared for in a similar way. There were innocent people, there were lost children. I was doing nothing for any of them, despite being given all the power I could have. Society was like a book full of images saturated with gore and chaos. I could stomach the cover, but the moment I tried to open a single page, I felt defeated, hopeless. However, I remained a teenager. While I can take actions to preserve my own existence and that of those I love, I didn't know where to begin when it came to the order of society. I have no idea how to defeat or decide. I'm so fucking tired of this shit. I have no idea how to decide who lives and who dies when they are not an active threat to anyone. And that was it. I decided that to truly justify taking human lives, they had to be an active threat to another human life. I had to allow the world to continue mostly unaltered, but save enough people to make a significant difference overall. We were sitting outside a cabin, looking on a massive private lake. We didn't belong there. It was not ours, but there was not much to say anything beyond to anyone. The cabin was abandoned for years. My thoughts of my place in the woods plagued me, just like most any human. What was my purpose? So, you're just going to play hero? Julia spoke for the first time in weeks with her own voice. I replied, "Why speak aloud?" She answered. "It's fun sometimes, but I don't know, seems like no matter what you do, the world will just keep being this way. You have the ability to change it all, but you don't know if the world without darkness would really be living. So you have a choice to either end it all, let all the shadows fade, or..." I cut her off. "I can reprogram it all," she responded. "Lobotomize everyone?" I sat there silently. "No more mental illness. I'm going to cure everyone," I said. She replied, "So, no more therapy, no more medication, no disorders for anyone." I smiled and said, "I don't know if anyone who wants to be damaged," she added. "Is being damaged what makes us us?" I was at a loss. I had a loaded gun without a trigger. After extensive thought, I decided to change the world in a way that would allow everyone to remain themselves. Only the consequence for our actions shifted. I ripped a hole in reality standing before me. I looked into the design of it all and got to work manipulating the skeleton of our society. I strengthened potential victims of crime. I designed defense mechanisms, enhanced aspects of the human body to strike back in the natural yet bold manner. Fingernails became as strong as steel. No There no longer an imbalance between the genders. Children were given the natural inclination to know the locations of their parents and vice versa, so they could never be lost or abducted effectively. I treated the world like lines of code in a video game, changing hit points, stamina, strength. I redesigned our species. I would say evolution was failing us, and I was correct, or I was the correction. However, I was a product of evolution. The time to return to society I had transformed had come. This seriously is really fucking, like, I'm gonna say this is really telling of his character. Like, I'm not saying characters and the characters he plays, I mean his personality. This is somebody, this is what he tries, when it comes to a lot of the shit he talks about. He wants everything the way he wants it to be, because everything he thinks is flawed. So, my gosh, this is so telling of you, dude. Stop writing these books. But we got 2 more chapters after this, so yippee. Alright, I think I'm going to end this here. Thank you guys so much for watching. Truly appreciate it. If you guys can, please leave a like, comment, share, subscribe, all that good stuff. This is Rob of Novakast signing off. Have a good one. And take care. Peace.